this Thursday evening, September the 11th. September, where's it? We're nearly halfway through. Football's back on the weekend, and so today's been, I think, a very good day for me. I hope you guys are doing really, really well. Let me know in the chat how it's been. What have you been up to this evening, this morning, this afternoon? Where you guys are. There's a lot of stuff to get through tonight. As I said, I didn't think I was going to do a show tonight, but yeah, when there are birthdays in the family, sometimes they finish early, sometimes they finish quickly. So mine are still reasonably quite young. So it just means that the birthday celebrations, particularly on a school night, tend to finish quite quickly. So I've managed to do a show tonight. I've kept up. There've been a load of things coming up tonight. A couple of things. So news from this evening from Ben Jacobs. Just looking down my list here, he's come out with a bunch of stuff. Mason Mount, Red Devils United. Mason Mount is so disappointed, can't stay fit for 3 games together. And again, this is on my list of things to talk about. Red Devils United. One of the things, if you watch the videos that I do, and I'm sure I've seen you in the chat as well before, is if people go back and watch this community and watch we talk about in this community, I've been banging on about this for such a long time. We'll sort of start there as well. But so there's some stuff from Jacobs on PSR, some interesting stuff on PSR. Basically, this concept of a squad cost control, which I think would be good to get into and talk about that. Sonny Lammens being number 1. This is from Fabrizio as well. So between Ben and Romano talking about that as well, which I think is always an interesting topic of conversation. Who I think, I'll go through my lineup as well. Injuries to Mason Mount, Cunha, and Gabriel. So it looks like that there's some exciting news coming out on him as well. So if you are new to the channel, get in there, like, favorite, subscribe, and all that fantastic stuff. Just honestly, just what an amazing community to be part of. So just for you Red Devils, let's get into it. So if you have watched this channel now for a little while, one of the things that I say, MZU says, hello, what are you doing? I am doing a stream. This is the United Devil channel. This is a United fan channel. We are a little bit more than that. We are starting to grow, and we are a little bit more than that. So feel free to get into the chat. The one thing I'll always say to the chat is try and be as respectful as you possibly can. I am not a dictator of the chat. I'm led by the chat. I'll come in with the topics that I have to talk about, and I will read out your chats. Obviously, there are super chats, there are memberships now on the channel as a consequence of you guys making the channel bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm probably the worst person to sell that stuff. Just get in the chat. I will try and read as many chats out as I possibly can. This is your channel as well as it is mine. Even if you don't support the club, happy to shift around and talk about different things. I thought I would say hello. Wayne, welcome, my friend. I hope you're doing extremely well, and hello to you, sir, tonight. I read somewhere City have 13 players injured. We can talk about that as well. It's almost like you're reading off of my sheet that I've got here to read off, so we can go through all that fantastic stuff. So again, we can flick around to what I was going to talk about. So let's. I think the first place, to be fair to you, as you made the comment, let's talk about Mason Mount. If you have been in this chat before, in this amazing community, what we do here, and as I say, I'm not a dictator of the chat. It is not my opinion, and that's it. I'll give you my opinion. We talk about it, and we have a chat on here, and we work it through together. Mason Mount. So I've been talking about this for the longest time now, all the way through pre-season. Mason Mount, one of my primary concerns, and what I've always said about Mason Mount, is that he has a long-term injury. Should play. Welcome to the chat, legend of the chat, and one of our mods. What I've always said about Mason Mount is I like the play. Whenever I've seen him play, he did, Luigi. He did maybe you could put it in a slightly different way. Let's keep this respectful. Respectful to him. Whatever you think of people's affiliations, we're not here to talk about that. At the end of the day, a young man as with 2 kids and a wife, he's not here anymore. So, and I watch the guy, not necessarily because I like the content necessarily. But there you go. JP81878. Do you paint roundabouts at St. George's Flag? What do you think? I'll leave that up to you. Random question. I'll leave that up to you entirely. If you think I'll give you a reason probably why I wouldn't, is I'm actually Welsh, so you can take that or you like. But again, as I said before, just get in here. Be as respectful as you can to the chat. I happily read out chats, but let's keep it respectful. Why are you a United fan then? I don't. So again, this is brilliant. Again. So I should tell you for why. No, and again, I'm more than happy to flit around chats and whatever else. No. So basically, number one, I do have to say this, that United do have the biggest fan base in the entire world. Right. So there are like 1 billion fans, right? So there's not 1 billion people who live up in Manchester, right? So probably typically, like most other fans, I supported them because my granddad, my uncle supported them during the 40s, 50s, 60s and passed that on. So I support them because it's something that I learned, it's something that I studied in books, and I know that might seem like a ridiculous thing now, but when I was a kid, you didn't have the internet, so the only thing that you could do to watch teams or learn about teams is basically reading books. So no, they weren't. I think their family originally was, but all my history pretty much is from Wales, but my family back did come from that part of the world. So it's all come from there. So pretty much that's the history, right? But again, you can ask that to anybody, right? But for me personally, mine comes from my uncle, my granddad, and basically what I've learned in books, what I've read about the club, for the last 38, 40 years, right? So yeah, I'm fully versed, my friend. But welcome to the chat. See what else we've got in the chat. JB, have you seen the signals? What the 2 people stood behind him just before he got Scott? I mean, I've not seen any of that yet today, mate. I mean, I'm not going to get involved in all that, but yeah, it's going to be a conspiracy theory thing, isn't it? I don't know, mate. I really don't know. Mason Mount is really not playing badly. He will start scoring again soon. Pug Spark 2. Again, tonight's show is more about you guys, right? I'll bring you in the news. You guys tell me from your perspective. Interesting opinion on Mount. And I think we'll start with there, right? So let's start with Mason Mount. I don't think he will. Mason Mount's done. I've been saying this for such a long time now. Such a long time. Wayne says the Forest manager being sacked is criminal. I think it is. Danny B, legend of the chat. Won't Cunha be there on the bench? No, Cunha's out. Why not support your local Welsh team? Because I don't live in Wales. So I would do. So we're not. Again, I'm more than happily to explain to you. So when I was a kid, so basically I'm originally from Swansea. Okay, so Swansea, back in the Division 4 days, I used to get taken to the games back in the day where Division 4 was horrific, right? So I even though I'm from that place, I never really linked to the club just because I was always hooked on the Reds, and I just never. And then I moved away when I was quite young, and never really got affiliated with them, really, to be honest with you. So my first love was always this club, and my local club was kind of never really there for me. So it is what it is, my friend. Rajat says, Dan James Giggs. Dan James, I love it. I've given him the same sympathy he'll give 100k unalived in similar ways. Okay, none. Yeah, exactly that. I think that no matter the political association of this young guy, at the end of the day, he's a person, he's got children, he's got a family. I think people forget that. No, take politics out of it. He was an intelligent, articulate man who was a dad and like a husband. Forget all that now, because that's done and dusted. All the political stuff doesn't, it's gone, isn't it? So it's a bit like trying to argue something that doesn't really need to be now. So Mount, I'll come on to Mount. Mr. Humble says, hi, hello. Just wanted Mount to stay fit to sell him in the summer. Exactly. My wishes at the Derby. Rob says, hi. So Cunha and Mount are out for 5 weeks, JB. Yes, I believe they are. Hit the like button. Support Swan now. How? Nope. Have you gone to Cardiff City game? Rajat, yes, I have. So you're a blagger. Respect the grind, but you're not a United fan. JB1878, look, right. If you've been in this chat before, right, and you can come on and you can call me whatever you like. You can call me a blagger. You can call me whatever you like, right? I've answered enough questions in here and spoken about this club enough, I think, for most people with a brain cell to know that I'm a supporter of this club. Just because you come from a place where there's a football team, right, and you don't support that team, you do know in life there is a thing called choice. So you can choose to do whatever you like to. So come on here and you can aim at next. You'll be calling me like a Forest fan, right, mate? You can say what you like, my friend. You don't know anything about me. You don't know anything about my family. You don't know how many games I've seen. You don't know anything. So, mate, I mean, what does a blagger mean? Basically, what he's trying to say is that I'm a fake fan, effectively. If you guys have been on here before, yeah, I mean, look, it's just funny. I mean, if you come to the channel, and I personally think we've had questions before on here, and I pretty much answer most of the question in terms of this club. I could talk about the club from a long time, and I think it's pretty obvious that you know. Sound okay? So if I'm from Scotland, I can claim Real Madrid by choice, but it doesn't make sense. What you're saying doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So basically, what you're saying is, right, is that if you're from Scotland, and this is going to be the last thing that I'll say on this one, is that, so what you're saying is that you can only support Madrid, and think about, and I just chat, feel free to go back at him or her, is that, so what you're saying, think about this, right? What you're saying is that you can only support the team, or you're not a real fan, unless you support the team where you live or you're born, and that's it. Like, think about what you said. No, I am more than happy. I'm more than happily to answer this guy for a second, or this person, because it's fine. I'm from a completely different country, but support an English team. Excellent, mate. Please, I implore you, keep on, because you're just making yourself sound stupid. Please, you just continue. Chat. I'll let the chat. You can deal with this guy, because my brain can't handle stupidity. And I am typically I'm a nice guy, but when I get people in chat like that who make my brain hurt, because when you get to a level like that, it doesn't even make sense. So chat, you can chat. I'll leave you handle that, my friend, because yeah, absolute Ridiculousness. Alexander says, hello, my friend. Who's yeah. Most people just pick a club who they like and it goes on from there. Exactly. Pick whatever club. Exactly, guys. Noella says, you don't have to answer this person. You enjoy doing what you're doing. Please do not be apologetic about support. Do you know what? I will never be, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'll never be apologetic for supporting something I'm passionate about and have been since I was about 4 years old. Amazing stuff. So, Mason Matt, let's get back to these question. Look, at the end of the day, continue. You don't have to understand because nobody needs to answer your question. So, what you can do is you can stay in the chat, or you can just you can't claim your club is the biggest in the world and shun fans from abroad. That's what makes you a big club. Fan basically supply the money to afford the transfer to allow competition. Now, Andrew, do you know what? You make a good point. And one thing I will always say on here, right, is this, right? I give absolute utter respect to match game fans. Okay, I believe respect to all fans. Now, you can argue that it's easy for me to say because I don't go to the club every single game, right? This is why I have massive respect for the match-going fans. The match-going fans are the ones who go every game, come rain or shine, and particularly at our club where the roof is leaking, the food is awful. We haven't been winning games. So I 100% give so much respect to those fans. But to me, it doesn't really matter necessarily. You being a football fan is just is being there at the ground. I think we've got some of the best support home and away. Those fans who've been there and they pay their tickets every single week. Respect, right? But football's not just about that, is it? It's about your emotional connection. Whether it's your granddad, mine is dead now, right? So my link to him is always through the club. I've spent hours with him. It's something that's been part of my life for 40 years, right? So football isn't just about that. So it doesn't really matter if you support your local club, you support a big club. It's wherever your passion is, and this is a habit that I can't break. And yeah, you can say what you like. You don't need to call names for having a valid reply. You don't have a valid reply, my friend. You just yeah. Do you know what I think we can do? And I'm going to do a massive favour. What I'm going to do is going to do you a massive favour and do that. Excellent. Because you're just annoying the hell out of me. The fact is, United fans are still supporting them despite their plight. Exactly that. So anyway, exactly. Absolute plonker. So Mason Mount, let's get on with the show because some absolute wallies in the chat tonight, but to you guys, absolute legends. So Mason Mount, and I think to go back to what Tulip Play says is that people can exactly Tulip. I think you make a fantastic point there. Absolutely fantastic point. Just my opinion. You can support whoever you want, wherever you live, and it's not against the rules to change to another team. I won't be a City fan anytime soon. Give me that ban, Hammer JB. He a crazy guy. That absolute ridiculousness. So Mason Mount Cunha, let's smack that out of the park. So Mason Mount, as we said, and says be better off without Mount playing as a striker now. If you could just get Amorin to drop a centre back and play another midfielder. Exactly, and I'll go through my team as well, Andrew. But I think let's see. Let's see. Amorin is a stubborn guy, right? Andrew, and I do think you make a fantastic point. I would like to see us getting another centre midfielder in there, but Amorin isn't. He's just not going to do it. After show, JB. Let's get through this, and then we'll just spitball it for a little while. So, Cunha. Apparently, it was a grade one tear, but it's not. You supported your club for so many years, so that makes you a true fan of the club. You love very much. Exactly, Wayne. It doesn't matter which club it is. Doesn't matter which club it is. Whoever you support, mate, and you give your time and your effort to, that's who you support. So, Cunha, grade. It's looking like it's Cunha. It looks like it's a grade tear 2, so it looks like he's going to be out for up to 5 weeks. So he's probably going to be out now until the next international break. So that's a massive blow. Now Mason Mount also as well. So as we've spoken about, and to go back to what everyone's spoken about here, Tulip Play has made a valid point. I support my legs, but they can't support me. Let the man speak and wait to hear this team news. See, this is the problem, Andrew, whereby I get sidetracked by chat. But no, I'm going to stay focused. So, Lammens, not Lammens, sorry, Cunha. So Cunha's out 5 weeks, pretty much. It looks like it's a grade 2 tear. So we're looking at 5 weeks, pretty much. So he's probably going to be out for 2-3 weeks by the time he gets back. Probably international break. So he's out. So that's a number 10 out. Mason Mount. So Mason Mount, as we know, Mason Mount has a historical injury. So what's starting to come out today about Mason Mount, and I've been going on about this for the longest time. If any time you hear me on here talking about Mount, I prattle on about his injury record. I think he's a good player, but the injuries for me just you can't rely on him. So just before we bought him, apparently there was probably about 6 months of where he was out with a pelvic injury. So he has a potential injury that is a career-threatening injury that can pretty much go at any time. So he needs an operation that's going to pretty much take him out for 6 months. So we bought him on that. Mason Mount had 1 year left on his deal. With those 2 injuries, he'd only just come back from an injury, and we paid £55 million. Right, so okay, fine. So Mason Mount looks like now, this is according to Fabrizio and Ben Jacobs as well, is that it looks like Mason Mount is 5 weeks, but it could be more than that. So it's now starting to feel like last season where Mason Mount again does need the operation, and at what point do they do that? So Mason Mount, for me, as I've always said, this is where I am on Mount. I think he was a wonderful player. He's shown some good stuff, but the problem is that his body, his mind is there, and part of his body work, and you can clearly see in that box, in that 2x2, 3x3 box, he's fantastic, but he can't get up and down the pitch. He can't be a centre midfielder. He's a very limited number 10, only limited because of his body. So I think Mason Mount is a good squad player, as Tulip says, and I agree with her. I wanted Mason Mount fit so we could sell him at the end of the season. I don't think that is going to happen. So we've got a number. We gave him the number 7 shirt, £250,000 a week. Injury-prone player. I think we're just going to have to suck this one up. I think he's going to play. It's going to take him weeks to get back again. So I think that Mount. This is nothing to do with the ability of Mount. I agree with Jack on this one. We should never have given him that number 7 shirt. And why I say that is Mount is the new Martial. Andrew, mate, I think you're spot on. I think you are spot on. A fit Mason Mount. If we were getting the Chelsea Mason Mount, fine, fair. But Mason Mount is I really like him, but it's just, sadly, I just think his body is just, there are players like that who show so much potential. He's not going to play till he's 30. I just don't think so. If Mount was fit, maybe by the manager would be tempted to play a false 9. He could still play Bruno as a false 9, which he has done before the big games. But surely Sesko has to start now. A fully fit Mount is great box-to-box midfielder for me. Rajat, in his Chelsea days, I disagree, but he can't be a box-to-box anymore. He just can't do it. He can't be a box-to-box player. He's just not. Imagine only ever being one injury away from your career. You can see it. You can see in the way that he plays. He can't go like 100%, and you can see it. And I think he's so sad. I think Mason Mount, when he came back, he looked like such a bright player, such a contrast. And so I'm going to go with the team, with what I think the team will be. And we've spoken about this yesterday, and so Fabrizio Romano and Ben were talking about this day on Fabrizio's podcast, I think it was as well. So according to those pair, Lammens is the number 1. So Lammens is coming in at number 1, and I it pleases me to say this. I do believe, and again, according to those two, that Lammens is come in. Now, one of the sticking points and one of the reasons why it took Lammens ages to come in is because basically Lammens didn't want to come in unless he was going to be the number 1. So he's a confident guy. Will Amorin choose not to put him in the firing line for the City game? I'll go through my team and what I think he should do. But I think Lammens plays. I think Lammens starts. As I've said, I would be brave and I would play him. What's the worst that could happen? He's got to play at some point. Even if you put him in goal and we lose the game 5-0, as long as they're not errors, I think he'll be absolutely fine. So Andrew says Bruno is not a false 9 in any way, shape, or form. I agree with you, Andrew. Bruno's greatest weapon is his 50-yard. He's not a Firmino style 10 that could be a Cunha. I agree. Why would you play a false 9 after dropping 75 and Šeško? Reject will be in Burma, Xerxes, Šeško front 3. If he puts Bruno 10, then maybe it's a Bruno and Burma, Šeško. So I'll go through my team, and you can tell me what you think. So I think you'll go Lammens in goal. I'm gonna call it now. I think Lammens plays. I think he goes Lammens in goal. I think he goes Luke Shaw. I think he goes Yoro, De Ligt, Mazraoui. So Mazraoui as the right wing back. Dorgu on the left. I still think he's going to play Casemiro and Fernandes as the 8 and the 6. And I think he's going to go Ahmad. He's going to go Mbumo, and he's going to go Šeško. I think Šeško starts. So I think he's going to go. I do. I absolutely think that's what he will do. I think he's going to go Lammens in goal. I think he's going to go Luke Shaw, Yoro, De Ligt, Mazraoui, Dorgu, Casemiro, Bruno, Ahmad. You're going to go Mbumo and Šeško. I think this game is primed for that. Now, the interesting thing as well for me is I think what adds added spice to this game as well is that this is Man City's worst start since 2004. So basically 2021. Rayan, mate, I'm not getting into all that, buddy. I just don't see the point, as Andrew says. I'll come back to Andrew because I do think he's made a fantastic point. Is why would you pay that money for a striker? He's been here now for a couple of games. He's been on. So if he'd have been here for pre-season, he would have gone, say maybe would have played 3 games, and he would have played 2. He probably would have played Arsenal and the Burnley game, say, right? He's now been part of 3 games, played a couple of times, been on international. So I think he's ready. So I genuinely believe, and I think he's going to play. Andrew says, I like the bravery, but if Lammens has a stinker against City, could kill his confidence off early. Like Biinda, take this rough run and hand it to Lammens for the easy run. Andrew, I don't disagree with that, and I like that statement. I do. I think that's a very logical. I think that's a very correct thing to do. But I think Lammens is different. I think Lammens wants to go and goal. So I've been reading up about him, and I'm more interested in the character, right? And Lammens really seems like the one. He's pushing. I think logical people, and typically I am, right? I would go with you. So Biinda for me would probably start and goal, but I just think Lammens is going to play. I just don't see the point. If you're going to ask me on a percentage wise, I'm still going to stick with this, right? But I think that it wouldn't surprise me. But I want to do something different. I want us to go, look, we've signed a player. We're so confident in this player, stick him in goal. I think you can argue it like the both ways, is that you put him in goal, and can you build confidence by just playing a keeper? So you sign a keeper, or do you protect him a little bit and go, look, I'm going to protect you in these next 2 games because we know what can happen. But I want to see a goalkeeper who's going to go, I don't care. Like, you've bought me. I'm coming in to be like the #1 keeper. I'm going to show you, put me in goal. So I want to see him in goal. I think he starts. But again, Andrew, I think it's a very, very logical. I think a very logical, intelligent, sane person would say he's going to start. But Lammens, for me, I think I just got this sneaky suspicion that Lammens is going to start. Do you think some managers don't rest their players enough when they get injured and they get back on the field quick and they end up with a worse injury and that puts their career? I agree with you, Wayne. Yes, I do. I do think players do that. But the interesting thing, though, Wayne, is that I played football for a long time, right? I'm no professional, not even semi-pro level, right? But I've played sport my whole life, right? I run, and I'll give you and I'll come, and this is the bit that I don't get, right? Is that so I run pretty much most days. I go to the gym, right? Now, when I say I run at a pretty decent standard, right? And I pretty much run most days. I'm not injured at all. I've been running consistently for about six to 7 years. I do, like, marathon wise, I probably do 3 marathons a year, maybe 2 ultra marathons, and maybe some like half marathons and that kind of stuff, like every year. So probably in a year, I'll probably do like lots and lots of training. I might get the odd injury like here and there, but I don't really get injured that much. Now, I'm 42 years old, right? So I should be picking up more and more injuries. It's not like I'm slow either. Still quite competitive. So the bit that I don't get and come back to you, right, is that I don't understand how players keep picking up these injuries. Like, I don't get it. Like, I know it's like high-end sport, and I'm not even trying to like compare the two, but it even seems like when I played football, like, I never got injured. Like, even now, I still don't get injured. So I don't know what it is, but I do think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think that these players seem to get injured, and when you want your best players, I mean, if you listen to some of the older players play back in the like early thousands, like particularly some of the harder men like a Vidic or like a Terry, or like I'm trying to think who else, like a Roy Keane or like a Bex, right? They always had an injury, but they always played with an injury. They always had an injection in their foot, or like the magic sponge, or. But everybody seemed to play with injuries, and you only really seem to get injured when you were at the latter stages. But now people seem to be getting injured like more and more frequently. So I don't know if that's because the game has changed. I don't know if it's because it's quicker. If you have to be more of a finely tuned athlete, and the problem with that is there's a fine line there between the risk as well. So yeah, Wayne, that puzzles me. Rajat says back line is Delit, Yoro, Mags, Dorgu, Mazraoui as a back 5. Interesting. Play Ahmad as a 10 or right wing back, who's pretty good against City. I think Rajat. I think he's going to go Ahmad as the 10. I do. I think I think he's going to play Shesko, and I think he should. Andrew says Haaland has character, but a shit running. Yeah, agreed. Agree completely. Is Cunha out for the net? Yes, he is, Martin. Cunha's out for about 5 weeks. If United doesn't really concede free kicks and set pieces, then Binder is okay. Cunha's out for 5 weeks. Yeah, he is 2-2. 2-2 or 2-3. Luke Skolk says the only thing that worries me is that whenever a corner comes into our club with a player comes into our club with a good season, but his performances went average with a toxic mindset. The one thing I will say, I will give Ineos credit for at the moment is allowing Amorin to get rid of those players. So I think what we're left with is that it's like this, right? if you've got an open wound and it's infected and it won't heal and it will not heal, but you've got to cut all of like the poison out and you've got to cut all of those bad bits out. So once those have gone, it's still going to take time for the wound to heal. So in my opinion, the toxicity I think is gone, but it takes a while for that mentality to shift. It takes a while for some of these players, like an Ahmad. He's learnt from these players that when you get the ball, you get your head down and you run it and you shoot. And you can still see that now, but it's going to take a little bit of time for these players to still adjust and to, they almost have to find a way together. So this is the same team as well that finished 15th last season. So I think the mindset is starting to change. I think the toxicity has started to go or has gone with these players. Ineos, the football inside, whoever it is, has given Amorin that right to get rid of that. So I think that's a plus point. But it's going to take, and this is why I say it's going to take Amorin at least a season or two to get to basically heal those wounds effectively. So he's there now to try to bring in that stability, to try to bring in his players. And this is why it's going to take a while. So I think we are going to see better, and the more changes that we make. And I think this is why for me, Lammens needs to start, is because then it's a whole mind shift. Would you rather have somebody behind you, and I mean this in the nicer sense, would you rather have somebody behind you in goal that's confident, you've never really seen play before, but you're just like, okay, or somebody and he's going to be awful at crosses and he's going to be awful? Is it sometimes not better to have that change and just see what happens? Rob says, I hope Lammens starts, but he hasn't had many sessions with the players, but apparently he's done well. I think he's going to start. I just want to see him. It's already been like 1.5 to 2 this week. I think we will be fine. Far bigger games. We're ready. Body check Haaland, Savinho. So Guardiola, I think, is out, isn't he? I think he's out. I think he is out. Who's the lad who played with a broken neck in the 60s? Oh, Jesus Christ. You're gonna have to give me more than that, mate. You're gonna have to give me a little bit more than that. Glad our player's ready. Body check Haaland, yeah, Andrew. But so Troutman, they were built differently in them days, mate. They used to play with those like really, really heavy boots and those balls that were made of lead, right? So imagine imagine like having to header those big, massive old that sounds wrong. Imagine having to header those big, massive old footballs. Take your head off. Scott says Shasko is a must, and I agree with you. Harry Maguire might get the nod. He did well last time he played City. The manager might take that into account. Interesting, Rob. Interesting opinion. I think he needs somebody. Will he though? I don't know. I think that's a good point. He clearly likes Shaw, right? So I think Shaw, Yoro, and De Ligt are going to play. I think they have to. I think they will. There's a question mark for me over Luke Shaw. Maybe he goes Yoro, but then the problem with Maguire for me is De Ligt will play. I do think he will. I think Yoro will play, and you can't have two centre backs in Maguire and a. See, now you're making me think. So I think that De Ligt is a centre back. Maguire is a centre back, and you almost need, if this is making any sense, you need a central centre back, and then Luke Shaw is on the left and Yoro is on the right. So he could do, but I personally think that he's going to go Luke Shaw, De Ligt, and Yoro. It will end 2-2. Wayne Ferris said it would be more exciting if all Premier League games were played on Saturday. I agree. Rob Amorin will have Harry on the bench, waiting to bring him on in the last 20 as an auxiliary box-to-box centre back for the last-minute winner. I don't disagree with that, Andrew, at all. City's defence isn't great. Hope Dan take our chances. I think Ahmad will play at 10 for the next 5 weeks, and he will do well because that's his position. I agree. Hope can take our chances. He will start. He will start Shesko. Xerxes, I don't think he will start. I think he will Dorgu, Ahmad, Bruno, Fernandez, Kobe, Mainu, Delict Heaven. Interesting lineup. I think that's an interesting lineup. I think that's a good. That would be a very attacking lineup. I don't think Xerxes gets a look in. I actually think Xerxes will leave, to be honest with you. But let's see what he does. Delit and Yoro has to start to bring some of that confidence. We were ready, powerball boxes. Right, cool. So that's my team. It's really interesting reading some of your takes on the team as well. Like Maguire, I think has been good. But I do agree. I think he's more of a sort of impact centre back, if there is such a thing. Like Maguire to me it reminds me. I get like an O'Shea vibe now with him. Like O'Shea, you could never really a starter. Maguire was. I don't think he is now. And Maguire reminds me of the O'Shea type, where you bring him on and you want him to do something. And you know, Maguire makes stuff happen. Maguire makes stuff happen. He'll get a header or we'll get a shot, and he might balloon it like over the bar. But Maguire just has this knack of being like an O'Shea and getting in there and making stuff happen. So I think Maguire. I think Andrew's spot on. I think will be used as an impact player. Who do you think is the best keeper in the league at the moment? I think Alisson, I think, is probably the best all-round goalkeeper. I think it's an argument for Raya as well. I like Raya. I'm trying to think who's in goal. So Donnarumma. It remains to be seen on him. Is he the best goalkeeper? Is he one of the best keepers in the world? Maybe. Is it? I don't think you can put him straight in as one of the best goalkeepers in the league right now, but he's going to be up there. So him, Raya, I think Alisson is the best all-round goalkeeper. I'm just trying to think who Chelsea got in goal. Arsenal, United, Lammens might be up there as well. Just trying to think who other people got. I like the Bournemouth keeper. I think Alisson for me. Ederson, it's Ederson since he left. To be honest, I would half expect you to get a result. These are the games this system works. 5 at the back, 2 deep midfielders, leave the forwards high and wide, let Bruno punt it into the space. Also just happens to be City's biggest weakness. Exactly. When Maguire removed captaincy, he was a good squad player. I agree with you. Hey, what does Roy mean? What does Roy team mean? I don't know. When Maguire removed, yeah, I agree. I agree with your team. That will probably be the team. Harry to score the winner off the bench at the last minute of the game. Now, what I'd love to see, and again, we do have City fans and we do have a Liverpool fans and that kind of stuff in here as well. And this is no disrespect to any fans, but what would be ironic to me is, so Pepper's had his worst start, right? Pepper's had his worst start. Well, sorry, City have had their worst start since 2004, right? So worst start in 21 years. Okay. So if Pep loses again, I don't know if there are any City fans on here, is Liverpool fans not. They do, lucky. They do, mate. We get Liverpool fans on here, or we get some really good Spurs fans. We get some Arsenal fans on here as well. We do get some interesting people on here as well. But so this is what I sort of respect, and put a tinge of respect on the things that I say about other clubs, because I do know that we get other people from different clubs on here. And I do like to put a tinge of respect, because ultimately at the end of the day it's banter. We don't mind the banter, and we are all football fans in here, right? So we're sort of all in the same boat. But But yeah, no Spurs fans are good. I think Scott might be right. Who's the next goalkeeper to get Costa off, Porto or Simon? So I'll give you a little thought on that as well. So again, Fabrizio talking to Ben. So Ben Jacobs and Fabrizio were talking, and basically that it's not out of the realms of possibility. This is why Lammens is going to go in at number 1, right? So he'll go in as number 1 because he wants to be. Now, if he goes in at number 1 and does extremely well, right, then they spent £17 million on a goalkeeper. Fantastic, right? Brilliant news. Okay. If not, and it's going to take him a little bit of time, it's not out of the realms of possibility that we go back in and get another goalkeeper, because Beyinda's not going to want to be a number 2 after being the number 1. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility that we go in for another goalkeeper anyway, because we're sort of going to have to, because he might leave, and we may actually then go and get a Costa as well. So I think don't sleep on the goalkeeper position, because we're still not done yet. We're still not done. I think we're trying to build a squad, but we're doing it at a snail's pace. And I will come on to that, because there is some interesting stuff that was said as well about PSR. So to Scott's point, so I think if United turn over City, the interesting thing for me would be then what will the City fans start to do, and will Pep walk? It feels like with Pep at the moment, should he have gone last season? I almost feel with Pep, it's almost becoming a bit stale now, which sounds ridiculous to say. And I don't know how City fans feel. If you know a City fan and you watch this and you are, let me know. But it almost feels to me like with Pep, he's run its course. Like it's a bit stale. It almost feels to me like his heart's not in it. I think once you've won like as many things as he's had, and you've got the treble as well, it almost becomes a bit like, well, what else can you do? So it almost seems to me like his heart's not in it. Now, I could be completely wrong. But it feels to me like when Pep loses a league, or when he has done, he comes out the next season and he comes out like roaring like a lion, and he's chomping at the bit. He wants to smash everybody. But I don't know if it's because maybe he's underestimated the league, or whether it's just hard, isn't it? So I think if City lose to us, which I think they will do, I think Pep could walk. Wayne says, I remember us Gary Bailey, Man United goalkeeper. Do I remember Gary Bailey? I've heard that name. I don't remember him per se, but I have heard of that goalkeeper. Scott says, Spurs fans good. Luke Scott says, I reckon it'll be a scrappy game with a last minute winner. Question, how far into the season would you be judging Amorin? Understand there's a fan base back in the manager, but at what point do you worry about the job he leaves for the next manager? Andrew Edwards again, mate. You seem like a very intelligent person with your sort of head screwed on, and questions are the sort of questions that I really do like to answer. So what I'll always say about Amorin, and I'll be consistent on this, is that I want to give him as long as possible. So we need to bear in mind what our fan base does, and other fans out there need to realise is that we finished 15th last season. Okay, this wasn't Amorin's team. Okay, Amorin didn't have his team, right? So bearing in mind for our history, we've played with a back four. Ineos have gone and got a coach who plays a different style of football. Okay, whether we like it or not, Amorin wasn't like Amorin's getting paid. He was asked to come to do this job, so it wasn't like he was forced into it. He sort of was forced into it, but it wasn't like he was forced into it. The club said, "Look, do you want to come? We know what brand of football you play. come and play this. So not only are we asking a guy come in to manage the league he's never managed in, with a toxicity level at this club which would kill most things, to come in an inherited team that is a mishmash of all different players with egos beyond anything that you've ever seen in your in life, low IQ, pandered players, and come in and do something with that squad. He managed to get to a final, and managed to scrape over a line 15th, our worst season ever. He's got rid of that toxicity, and he's now bought some of his players in, not his first choice players, because don't forget he was promised Quenda, Gyökeres. He asked for centre midfielders. So where I don't agree with some other outlets out there who will say, "Oh, Pep says that Amorin now has his team, and he's got rid of players, and now we can finally really start to look at Amorin and really start to focus on him as a coach." I need to prefix everything with, we still got the same effing team that finished 15th last season, other than 4 players, right? 5 players, okay? And you can argue, yeah, that is like half a team, but we've still got the mentality. He needs another 3 windows, right? So I've got to back him. But to Andrew, to go back to your question, and this is going to be a long answer because I think it has to be a thorough answer. Well, how far can you let that go, right? So I back him, even if we finish 10th, and as long as we're having a slightly better season, I would back the manager to even suggest to me that, and you can argue we've only got 1 game a week, you can argue that, right? But to basically hold up that this manager has to get a 5th place or it's a failure this season, I think is ludicrous completely. I think if he builds on this season and goes, look, he finishes between 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, fine. But how far do you let it go? And I'll be honest, it's going to take a lot for me to get him out. But there does come a point where you go, if after Christmas going into February, March, and he's 15th again, then as much as I'd still want him in charge, you have to go, is he the wrong coach? It doesn't mean that he's a bad coach. It just means that we need something else. We can't let this fail, right? So if that happens, and one thing that I have to concede on this point is that he's 40 years old. Like, he's still young himself. Like Amorin's system, if you come back in 10 years' time, it's going to be a similar system, but it will change. I have to accept that maybe he's too young for the job. Maybe he's coming at the wrong time. Should he have gone to City and take that job over? Possibly. You've got more resources in there. Maybe players that can play that system. So how far do you let it go? In my opinion, now we've gone down this back 5 route, we need to stick at it. So for me, the next coach has to be a coach who has to play back 5, because how can you keep flipping around going playing a back 4 to a back 5? Well, we should have just stuck with a back 4 coach until we'd have got the right coach in. So I think Ineos have either played a masterstroke or basically just piling more crap on top of crap. So to answer that question, I really don't know. For me, it's not as simple as where we finish. There may come a point where Amorin walks himself and goes, look, you're not giving me the tools to do my job. I'm going to walk. So I think this is a little bit more complex than just he's going to get sacked. I think he could be sacked. He could walk. There's going to come a point where hopefully not, and hopefully we've moved over that hump now. But the next phase where, say, we don't win in 5, what's going to happen then? So I think it's a really complex answer. Mike says tough game on Sunday for United. Ireland beat a bunch of postmen on Tuesday. Portugal and Cristiano next. 9 like complete. Exactly, guys. Don't forget to get in there, like, favorite, and subscribe. I reckon we will mask Haaland, Savina. Yeah, we will also have Majraoui. Andrew Fair says, hi, bro. Hello, my friend. Rob says, after Sunday's game, City have Napoli and Arsenal away. Hopefully, they will be in the mud very soon. Majraoui must start. I agree with you. How did United sign a bad keeper in the beginning? How did Man United sign a bad keeper in the beginning? Because we basically let Ten Hag have his way. I was a Ten Hag inner. I'm not going to lie, just purely because I didn't want to sack another coach. But what Ten Hag did with the goalkeeper situation, with De Gea, and kicking him out and bringing Onana in. There's some moves that managers make, and you can forgive them. I can't forgive him for that one. I think what an absolute. Can you imagine if he was still in goal now, and you brought in Lammens last year? You'd have Lammens learning off one of the best goalkeepers, in my opinion, one of the best keepers that we've ever had, probably top 3, 4 that we've ever had. Imagine Lammens learning from him now. It would be ridiculous. So I entirely blame the bozos responsible for that. I blame the ex-coach for that as well. Absolute ridiculousness. FIFA 25 completed its squad rating at 99. Maybe wrong time. Rob says, on the keeper front, do you think we might go back for Martinez and Jan? Because we do need another keeper. I think it's a possibility, Rob. I think it's a possibility. I think that Lammens is number 1, right? And I think that what we do is that we possibly go back in for maybe a Martinez if Lammens doesn't work out. There's a possibility of that, and we've got to accept that. So I think that we are going to go back in for a goalkeeper. But if Lammens establishes himself quickly, then I think we'll go for like a number 2 type of keeper, or Vitek should be back, but Vitek might be number 1 as well. So I think Lammens will cement his place as number 1. We'll see how he goes. And then maybe if things are not going great there as well, maybe we do go back in for a Martinez. So I wouldn't rule that out either. Luke Skolk says, imagine Kevin De Bruyne scores the winner against City in the Champions League. That would be ironic, I think. Hebro, what does that mean, Lucky? Up the Chelsea. So Jay Boogie, welcome to the chat. Chelsea, as I'll always say, at the moment, I think Chelsea can be whatever they want to be. The 74 the charges against you guys is not looking good, is it really? But that side, I think Chelsea can be whatever they want to be. In spells, they look sublime. I think Esteval is a great player. João Pedro looks like a really, really good signing as well. So, but back 4 wise, tell you what, I'm not impressed with that back 4. So, as I say, Chelsea I think can be anything they want to be. I think they can either be sublime or they can have an off day. So let's see. With Pep, all good things finally come to an end and accounts for all managers the same thing. I think Wayne Pep at the moment reminds me of what Jose went through. So when he left Chelsea the second time, I can't remember where he went. Was it into Chelsea and then wherever he went, and then he came to us. And I think that was his sort of downfall. And then he went to Spurs and Roma and whatever else. And I think he lost that sparkle. So I think Pep is starting to lose that sparkle. And I just think you've got to, I think with a coach like that, when you've had so much success, he must be tired. Being that focused, being that hyper-focused, being that such a meticulous character, whatever you think about him, meticulous to a T, passionate, he lives and breathes his teams. It must take a time. And I mean, he's in his 50s now, isn't he? So I think you can lose your sparkle, and it's very, very rare for a manager like Pep to sort of last a long time. I think he's done amazing things in his career, and he's got nothing to prove. I just think maybe he's lost that little bit something special. But let's get through Sunday first. Says, hey bro, I'm in a loan, 130 bucks. My life's in risk. I can't give the money back. I don't give the money there yet. Can you help me, brother? I just give a couple of hours left in my honestly, my friend. I'm just yeah. He needs to earn it too. He needs to perform now. Jay Boogie says Mourinho back in before Christmas. I hope not, mate. I hope not. And says Amorin is a young coach who has only known success with this system and has never really been challenged until now. He has come to the Prem and the level of coaching is considerably higher. Andrew, and do you know what? That is exactly where I am on it. It's exactly where I am on Amorin. Is that he's a young guy? Like his system. You look at Kalajna, and you look at some of these other guys. You look at the Brighton coach who was it Pauli in the Bundesliga. Those guys. I think he came up with them through a couple of leagues as well. This is a very, very difficult league. It's okay to do it in the Champions League. As Amorin showed for Sporting, and he did it against City in the Champions League, one-off games, right? He's got something. I can't dispute that. I think he's got something, but as you say, he is a young coach, and it's very rare for a young coach to do that well. You look at Eddie Howe, right? And I'll use him, and you might go, well, actually, what's he really done? But Eddie Howe came through early as a coach, so he started to learn the game. So the Bournemouth side of things, I think he did phenomenally well there. I think he did the right thing, learned his craft there, went to Newcastle, and again he's grown into that job. He's been given the time to grow. People, even then his job never really feels as if it's safe. But if you look at him as a coach and how he's progressed, and he's still a young guy, I think in another 5 years he's going to be one of the best, most experienced around, right? Amorin is 40 years old. He's younger than me, right? And I sort of have a job, right? Well, I do, right? I'm experienced in my job, in my industry. I've got 20 years experience, right? And even I'm still relatively young, and even I'm still having to learn from different people as well. So and in my industry, the average age to do the job of what I do is probably around about, I'm 42, probably around about 50. So I'm relatively young to do what I do. And he's the same. So there's no coincidence that all the best coaches start doing better 45, 50, 50-ish, and then that's when they have their peak years, is because they're more experienced, they're more confident. And that's what Amorin is just missing, that little gap for me. He's missing those couple of years. I think once he's had these couple of years in this league, and if he wins a league, can he? I'm not sure. Then he'll become give him 3 years and he'll be a vastly improved coach. I just want him to do it here. The disrespect to, I agree with you. What we did to him was a disgrace. So David was a legend, mate. I agree with you completely. Do you have set times you're live, etc.? Andrew, I pretty much I don't. It's just as and when. This is my sort of like, this is my the channel's got bigger than I anticipated quicker. So I still have a full-time job and kids and that kind of stuff. So I try to do a morning show, I try to do an afternoon show, and I try and do an evening show, but the times really depend on sort of in and around work, in and around family and that kind of stuff. So I try and do a morning. I will do a watch along. So the only times I pretty much will commit to are like the actual matches themselves. So City, I will do one for that as well. But mate, if this gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then I will commit to times. But right now, this is my kind of like my this is my pleasure. This is my hobby. So I just try to work it around stuff. But I do try to do a morning, afternoon, and an evening show. So that's my sort of timetable, and until something happens, if it happens. Rajit says Eric Ten Hag had so much control over the transfers. He did. Maybe that's because there's no football manager IQ. I don't disagree with that, my friend. I think Ten Hag was a good coach. I just think, sadly, he just, I don't know, my friend. Gerald says, good day. I'm Sankelo Imbwasa from South Africa in Soweto. I'm curious about the English football. Welcome here, my friend. Really, really glad to have you here. Don't forget to give us a like, favorite, and subscribe, guys. It really, really does help us out. Any questions that you've got, get them into the chat, and I'll try and answer all your questions as best I can. Chelsea can be whatever they want to be because they have a player for every purpose. Exactly, Andrew. Exactly that. They could field about like 100 teams. Chelsea can potentially win the UEFA Champions League because they've got 56 left wingers, and then also got Garnacho. Chelsea can be charged by. Oh, okay. It's a troll account. Don't waste time with this crap, to be honest. As Daniel says, it takes a toll to keep rebuilding squads. Wenger also couldn't rebuild the same standard squad, nor could Jose. Alex was the only one who could. So Alex was Sam Sam Cunha is out for about 5 weeks, my friend. So he's not going to be back until after the next international break with a grade 2 hamstring tear. I agree with you, Sir Alex. That is what makes him. You know, he was able to do what he did. You know, very, very unique coach. You know, in eras, you know, you get coaches. You get Sir Matt Busby. You get Paisley. You get Shankly. You get Fergie. You know, you could argue you've got Ancelotti. Probably Pep as well. You know, you could argue that as well. And I'm sure there's loads of others out there. But you get these band of managers, but Sir Alex sort of stands out. And Liverpool fans may go, well, you know, you got Shankly and Paisley as well, which you do. But I think the difference for Fergie, for me, what sets him apart, and this is just my opinion on it, is that he didn't just build teams. And people won't like what I'm about to say, but I think it's true, right? Is that if you want to talk about the father of the Premier League and how the Premier League started, and I'm going way back when, and I can talk about this because I lived it, like I was there from the very, very start, is that United and Fergie were the Premier League. And Cantona, I'll bring him into that as well. Like, he built, not only did he build squads, but he built a football team. Like, United was still a big draw, but he rebuilt them. I don't think people quite understand what he did. He rebuilt the scouting network. He looked, you know, not only players, not only the youth players, but he looked at their dads. He started to look at things just beyond the play. You know, where were they from? You know, what were the parents like? You know, that kind of stuff. You know, and he rebuilt this club, and by doing that and making this club massive again, the attention got drawn into the league. Now, I'm not saying that other clubs didn't have their say. Like Liverpool now, again, you know, they are the main team. You know, they draw millions of people into the league. Arsenal did it as well. So I'm not trying to say over the years that, you know, other clubs did have the hand in trying to build this league as well. But Fergie, what makes him so good is because he is the father, in my opinion, of modern English game, because without him and that team and what he did, I think the landscape would be completely different. Stimor says, Joe Pedro moving to Chelsea has slipped in. He has, although we won the Gold Cup, he has scored and assisted. I think Stephen Moore, I think he's been an absolute fantastic player. I think he's a bargain. I think at 50 million, I think he's a bargain. So, thoughts on Onana? Thoughts on Onana? Thoughts on Onana are that I wish him well. Good luck in Turkey. Hope you do well. Let's see. Sam sums it up. Hey JB, Elliot Anderson is top priority for the January window. Yeah, I've heard that as well, my friend. So I've heard, I did hear that get mentioned today as well. Elliot Anderson, Belieber possibly as well. Let's see what happens. I believe it when I see it. I really do. The one thing that you can tell about this club is a reciprocal. Sorry, is it a reciprocal? Is that the correct word? No, it's a reciprocal thing, right? Whereby every time the transfer window comes on, there's nothing out there. So United need to put stuff out there for clicks, and as we all know, United make money on social media. They must make millions, right? So putting things out there to Jacobs, to Romano, to Ornstein about how we're going to sign this player and that player, Belieber in January, Anderson, it goes for clicks. I am not doubting these targets. I'm hearing so many different things, but let's see. We never do business in the January window, and my only counter argument to that is, why wouldn't we have done it now? Because you think about it, right? From a logical perspective, okay? The January window is a World Cup year. If you're playing in a team and you're getting into that international squad and you're playing, why is someone going to move? Like, unless you're told by the manager of your international team, if you don't get a move, you're not in the squad. That to me is the only way that you're going to move. So why are these players going to move in season when they don't have to? So that's my only caveat to that. Also, it's very, very expensive, and United don't like to spend the money at the best of times. So I agree with you 100%, and I think Anderson is definitely on the radar. Belieber is, but I'm very, very skeptical about spin and how we don't do business. But as I have said, and I will come on to some interesting PSR things that were discussed today, but the money is there. The money is there to do it. It's just whether we can do it. Sam says, so Ahmad and Burma as 10s and Delo as right wing back. I think Mazraoui is going to be the wing back, Sam. I think Ahmad, I think you're right on the two number 10s. Shesko starts. I think Lammens starts. And I think that Mazraoui is in there as well. Reddit says, and he can't play because he's injured. Sam, Forest or Brighton won't sell us Anson or Belieber in. I agree with you, Sam. I agree with you. I do agree. And we're not going to put in a massive bid either. So I think it's typical international window spin. That's where I'm at on it. Also, the difference with doing it with Sporting in the Champions League is that they went into each game with confidence. United team are short at this point. How ridiculously underrated he is. I agree with you. I agree with you completely. I think that he is a great coach. Daniel says, I don't think they brought Eddie Howe in to win trophies. No, I agree with that. I always thought he came in to get them away from the drop zone, but he's done excellent there. But Newcastle's expectations are changing. Eddie Howe, mate, I think he's a very underrated coach. Obviously, you don't bring him in to win a cup, but he has done, right? So what can't be argued with them is that he's won their first cup in 70 years. I think he's a good coach. I mean, I look around, right, and sometimes you go, you can get in like a foreign coach, right? But Eddie Howe knows this league. Like he's not an Alan Pardew. He's not a Steve Bruce. He's not He's not a. I'm just trying to think of like some other old English. He's not like a David Pleat. He's not like a. And nothing wrong with David Pleat, by the way. He's not like an Allardyce. He's not like a Dyche. I actually think Eddie Howe is so underrated. To do what you did against Liverpool with 10 men, you can't fake that. You can't fake it. You can't fake it. So Eddie Howe, I think he's very, very underappreciated, and I think he's a great coach. Sam, you could be right, mate. Just updating the latest info. Bruno want players at 10, so Mbeumo and Ahmad. I agree. Why after Nottingham Forest centre midfielder? Because he's basically good. He looked good for England. I agree, he did. My only problem with with Anderson is he like, I can't think of his name now, and is the guy from Leeds that went to City. Is he like him in terms of Phillips? Is he like a Kelvin Phillips who looked good for Leeds? Looked good for England. Did that role really, really well. Went to City and then fell off a cliff. Will you take Bruno? Will you take Bruno for 100 mil in the Jan? Luke Skywalker, I'd take it for him next season. Yeah, I definitely would do. I absolutely would do. I would take it for him next season. We can't let him go in the next window unless I just don't think we can. I would do it, but I just don't think we can. I just don't think we can do it. I would. I think we should have, but we haven't. I think he needs to stay. So I think this is Bruno's farewell tour. As I said today, I think Mainu is being lined up to replace him. I think Mainu is going to replace him, and that's why they don't want him to go. So I think he's staying around. JB, what's your favourite all-time derby? The 4-3 is up there for me. I would love us to hammer City on Sunday. I think I agree with you, mate. I think the 4-3 is probably my favourite one for a number of reasons. I went to Thailand, and while I was there, that match was on, and I just remember that night and just fantastic night. And yeah, I remember the winner, just Mark Lowen. I thought he was a okay player. One of the best in the world, I don't know, when he was 21. But by the time he came here, he was gone. But just I will always like him for that guy. I mean, no matter what you could aim at Owen, was that he still knew how to finish. And what a game, what a finish. Probably I agree is that I one of my favourite ends to a football match, other than the Champions League final. Tell me the true story of English football, mate. I'd love to tell you the story, but we'd be here all night long. And you need to be more specific. I can't tell you the entire history of every single club. I could give you an overview, but I'm not going to do it now because we'll be here for hours, and I don't think people are going to want to listen to me for the next 10 hours. Daniel says, I think Jose Esse or Aaron Ramsdale. So I think Sarr or Ramsdale signing would have been beneficial for United. Premier League experience for a first choice keeper is crucial. I don't disagree. I think, I think you're right. I think we probably should have got in an experienced Premier League keeper the year before last, and then Lammens comes in now, and then you can almost go like, you've got a year to try to push him out. But are we doing what we've done to strikers? We're going to get a young keeper in, and the expectations are going to be in there straight away. So I think it's yeah, I don't disagree with that. But this is how we've landed, right? So we've gone and got a young Belgian keeper, and we're now expecting him to just come in and pull a worldie. So yeah, I can't disagree with that. Flick and Klopp, we work in mid-play, shut down defence on Sunday. And Andrew Edwards says, believe it won't happen in Jan. I agree with that. If you didn't have the money in the summer, you wouldn't have it in Jan. This Fernandes goes, but don't see that until after the World Cup. The funny thing is, Andrew, I did do a show the other day which goes over like with the players that we've let go of, and yet we can argue about, and this will be a good segue into the next point as well, actually, which concerns all clubs as well, by the way. So with the wages that we will save this season, and this is not a case of we're going to save this over 3 to 4 years. This is a case of this is what we will save by the end of the season. We will save £74 million in players' wages, right? If you then on top of that factor in the money that we got for 2 players that we sold, you're looking at the best part of £170 million. So you're looking at the best part of £140 million, right? And then when you factor in everything together, some that will be paid over the next 2 to 3 years, but we've in essence saved £180 million. So we've got £180 million back on like players' sales, potential obligations to buy, wages as well. We spent 200 million. So, but that's not 200 million pounds in this one window, right? So even if you go in this one window, we spent 200 million pounds, right? So by the end of this financial year, we would have physically actually saved 75-80 million pounds, right? So if you factor in the first payments, okay, so Cunha is last year, so he doesn't even count. You've got say 20 million to Brentford. You've got maybe 20 million, 25 million for Shesko. Lammens, say maybe 10. So 55, right? 55 minus 75 that will save this year. And also, I'll come on to this as well. So it's actually a net gain of 25 million. So my question is, where's the money gone? I'm not going to be pushed away from this one, is that there is money there. Of all these savings that we've made, we've saved a load of money. Where has the money gone? Go Transubspor. Salam alaikum. Welcome, my friend. Where are you from? I'm from the UK. We do have the money for Believing now. It's public info on X. We have 40 million and took out 90 million credit on top, which is 140. We bought Lammens for 17. We still have the money for Obi. Exactly, mate. We still got the money. But I think there's going to I think there's going to be something that's going to come out, because you got to think about this, right? If you follow the money, and I did a quick sum on the back of some paper about roughly about how much wages that we'd save, the fees, etc. Blah 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 blah. We've got the money there, but where has the money gone? And that is my that is my question. Get Steeler, he's got a lot more potential as number 8. Kelvin Phillips, Zidane would make a brilliant Wayne, mate. Zidane needs a team. I got something on my chin. Zidane basically needs a team. Zidane is not a builder of teams. Zidane is basically a coach. You need to give him a load of money and he will win you stuff. He's not a builder of clubs, and we need a builder of teams. So I think you're right. What you said in the January window, I think our business is done until summer. Unless, say we need an emergency player, next summer will be the midfielders. this one window is spread over 5 years. So are your previous 5 years through the club also paying off Ollie and Ted? Exactly, Andrew. I will do the homework for this on the next time. Exactly, Andrew. This is why, Andrew. I think that. I think this is where the money has partially gone as well, Andrew. I think you're right. I think that we are paying for these players to basically to go, and we are writing off our previous debts. So this is not being asked enough of. I don't think in this international break, instead of trying to figure out if like Lammens is going to be number one, if these players are going to play, like who's going to play where, who, what, where, and why. If you follow the money trail, you're still in a huge net loss over there. So, and this is the interesting thing, Andrew, as well, right? Is that if you look at PSR, and that is a good segue into PSR, right? So if you look at from a PSR perspective, right, is that if you look, so we do two things, right? There's a PSR perspective from the stock exchange, but we also have another footballing account called Red Football, which is what we use for PSR. Now, if you look at the losses that we make, which we have done, those are not the same ones that we use for the PSR. We use Red Football, which is an offshore account that this in the Cayman Islands or somewhere like along those lines. So we manipulate PSR, and FFP is obviously something different. Those are the domestic rules, right? But for PSR, we're absolutely fine. So there's a lot of we're very good at cooking the books. We're very, very good at cooking the books. We're very, very good at making you look over here and then doing something under here as well. But I think you're spot on in terms of and this is my question: where has the money gone? I think the money. FFP is a UEFA rule. You don't have to worry. True. Okay. True. But for the PSR, we're we are fine. We are absolutely fine for PSR. We're absolutely fine. We are very good at manipulating the book. So in regards to that, so there's something that come out today, and I'll just read some through. And Andrew, again, feel free. I'm not an expert in this field. I'm an accountant by trade, so I understand the accounting mechanics behind it a bit. But stop me, and this is what I've heard. Okay, so effectively, okay, right, where we are at the moment is I'll go back a second. So Sharice says Chelsea v so Bayern Munich match, Champions League inauguration match. Chelsea played well in the league. Bayern have no hard to cross the game. Tell something, boss. Kane versus Pedro, right foot head goal. Munich, don't sleep on Munich, mate. I have a great PSR notes, but not to Man City board level, mate. If you're, I'm sure your PSR is well like ahead of mine. So fantastic. I will bow down to you. So I'll tell you what I've heard today, and you can give me your opinion on this, Andrew, because it's always nice to have experts in from PSR fields, or if your understanding is good as well. So there's a shadow new. It's called squad cost control, right? So this is being shadowed by UEFA, and it looks like that there's going to be a UEFA shadowing effect that will happen now. Okay, but then that's like a broader view, but there's going to be a domestic change to that as well. So there's going to be like this overall new PSR, this squad cost control rule, but there's going to be a domestic rule as well, which is going to replace PSR. So basically, how this goes is that, so this squad cost control, it looks like I don't know when this is going to be implemented, but how it's going to go is in this way. So basically your spend, and this will replace PSR, and I think it will replace FFP sort of thing as well. So it's going to be like this encapsulating overarching rule, and then from a domestic perspective, you're going to have this as well. So the rule will go like this. So when the Premier League table for payment is out, so you get your payment for first place and then your sort of like your last place, right? Is what's going to happen is when the new team comes up, that team in last place, now depending on what their money table is going to take that income, times it by 5, and that's going to be your spending cap. And what I mean by that is that, so for example, it's going to look at what the revenue will be for the bottom place team, times that by 5, and that is going to be the cap for the entire league. So for example, if I don't know, in a league where United went down, for example, came up again, and then the cap was in place, then potentially that cap could be huge. But if, say, Wrexham came into the league, they would times the income by say 5, and that would be the cap. So the whole point of that is it gives a little bit more financial flexibility to teams now, can spend a little bit more, but it still stops teams like City, Liverpool, but not Liverpool, but City. So any team with like a Saudi owner really who want to spend the money, so it still stops that from those guys just spending their money. So it basically means that you can spend 80 to 90% of your total income on players and agent fees, but there is a cap. So basically the cap is going to be called an anchor. So it's going to be like this anchoring cap. So it basically is going to look at the lower leagues, going to look at the table, so the Premier League predicted earnings. It's going to times that by 5, and then that's going to be the cap for the league. So that is a sort of really brief overview to come to that PSR, that kind of new way to look at it. So that at the moment is being trialed. This was discussed, I think, by Jacobs and by Fabrizio. So it's a really interesting thing to come out as well. So Andrew, and again, these are the conversations that I absolutely love to have, because it's I think it's really, really important to kind of like have these conversations, particularly when we're talking about the buying players. So I think it's such an interesting concept that these financial rules are being amended all the time. Now, particularly when you've got the likes of City, who are still trying to dodge these 115 against them, which in light today of Chelsea's 74 against them, it's for interesting reading. Mate, football aside, let's have a little look. Why is the World Cup being held in extremely dangerous country when more than 30 in their mark? My words, someone will get hurt. I'll come back to that. Blue edits up. There's certain words I'm not going to read out just because I don't want to get banned. Could be a great rule. The current rules is implemented to block new teams breaking into the top leagues and keep the status quo. Exactly, Andrew. I think anybody, I think it has to be competitive, right? Has it come to a point, Andrew, whereby are the top teams now too rich and powerful to be stopped? My answer would probably be yes. But if you can give some sort of competitive element to the lower league teams to be competitive and stay in the league, then I think it's worth it. Chelsea's 74. Agreed completely. Chelsea fessed up and have admitted to their misdoings, whereas City completely agree. But it's an interesting concept to me how they both are, but at the same time, it's interesting how with these financial rulings and and whether we're talking about financial rules and whether we're talking about finances or the way that a club behaves, whether we're talking about, like a breach of the Premier League rules or UEFA rules, it just goes to show the levels that clubs will go to remain on top, right? And that is what this to me this whole thing's about, right? Anyways, my prediction is 2-0 to United. I hope so, my friends. Yeah, I understand YouTube is very sensitive to those sorts of topics. Tell me your thoughts on Onana, mate. See, like, interesting that everyone in Forest would have been dealt with by now, but exactly. Everton, exactly. Still, there is a chance to recruit player in the league. Who the player still have the chance to flow the better team? Suggest your opinion fast to the Chelsea fan. There's no the window shut, mate. I don't think there's any. If I'm reading that right, there's no. You can't recruit anyone else right now. It's all shut. So is that offensive or something? It's just you've asked that twice now, and and it's not a dig, but when I get asked the same thing over and over again when I've answered the question, sometimes it could be a bot. So I'm just making sure that it's not. If I'm going to give you my opinion on Onana is I'm glad he's gone. I think he's probably the worst goalkeeper that we've ever had. Onana seems like a nice guy, right? I think the problem with players, and I think people need to be able to separate the difference between players and people. Onana seems like a nice guy. Onana seems like a really, really good guy. I'm not going to dispute that. He's got the Onana fund and all that sort of stuff, and I admire that. It seems like a really, really nice person. It seems like a really, really nice guy, right? He's just not very good at his job. Okay, fine, cool. So Onana for me is not. He's probably the worst goalkeeper that we ever had. But I like the person. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a nice person and all that stuff. But the job that he's actually paid to do, I just don't think he's very, very good. Personally, I think they should do away with PSR FFP. If I own a club, I want to throw $1 billion down. Then that's my. I don't disagree, Andrew. I think. I agree and disagree on that one. I think I agree if I'm the club receiving the money, right? So this is where I agree with you on it. If I'm a club and I want to throw $1 billion or £1 billion at my club and waste it, right? Free market. I get that, right? And if I'm the recipient of that, brilliant. But if I'm not, then obviously, how do you? The problem with that for me is the only problem that I've got with that is how do you remain competitive? Like how do you then have an exciting league? And that's my problem with football right now. Is that and I don't know how old you are, but during the 90s. Now, football for me was, yes, there are bigger teams, and yes, more clubs spent more money, right? But at what point does it not become competitive? And whether we like it or not, it's a brand, right? So the Premier League as a brand, they're trying to protect their brand. But in spirit, I agree with you. I think if you want to spend your money on whatever you want to spend your money on, mate, it's your money. But I just from a purely spectator sport, how do you then make it more competitive? But some people may not care about that. Just down it says you can't make it up. Honestly, the bad luck. Let's hope Lammens is better, and let's hope Mount and Cunha are back and firing in 5 weeks. How many games are they going to miss? So I don't have the league table, the league games, but they'll miss City. Then we're City, Chelsea. I can't remember who's after that. City, Chelsea, The next international break is October. I think it's Liverpool, isn't it? Is the next one Liverpool? So I wonder. Yeah, I think it's 5 weeks. So next international break. So I think they're going to miss about 4 games. Yeah. Uh, yes, Eddie says, hi there, man. Is being the first time in your life. Thank you, my friend. Welcome here. Welcome. This is the best community on the platform, hands down. Thank you so much for being here. Let's move on from Onana. The damage has already been done. No Champions League, no Carabao Cup. Him as a person, he's nice. As a Liverpool fan, I respect every United fan. Thank you, my friend. Again, mate, it's your different fans of clubs are always welcome on here, my friend. It's always nice to have you guys in here. When you meet sensible fans, you can always have a good chat, right? And it is all about respect. And what I always say about Liverpool this season is that what you guys have done to earn the money that you've got and you've spent it, you've earned it, you spent it. We're not in your league this season, and you guys are in a different league to us right now. Good luck, really, for the season ahead, because we're going to need it, and you guys are not. If I spent $1 billion on players, that money will get spent by those teams to replace their players. It's an economy. Money doesn't always buy the league, but it doesn't half up. Again, Andrew, I think that's a very, 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 very legitimate point. It does. I'd counter that and say that probably yes, but then I'd also probably say if you're spending £1 billion on players, I wonder as a percentage how much of that actually goes on agent fees and that kind of stuff. So maybe of that, say you're talking about £1 billion overall just spent. So let's just say you spent £1 billion in buying players. I reckon you 30% of that is on agent fees and fees that don't go back into the football economy like as it was. But I agree with you, my friend. I think if you just pluck £1 billion out of thin air, you put that. But if you put $1 billion, but okay, here's my question to you, Andrew. Right? If you put £1 billion into, say, Championship, League One, League Two, and then you could argue. So let's just say, and this is my question, right? Is that let's just say if you put £1 billion for every league, but you put it into like the Championship, League One, League Two, same with like the Bundesliga, would that benefit the football economy better as a whole, rather than plowing it into the top leagues? And what I mean is that then would you get better, more competitive teams at that end that will then push and make the kind of league better and a bit more competitive? So, for example, if you put £1 billion into like Bundesliga 2, is it, or maybe the lower ends of like the Bundesliga, and you allow them to get better players in, would that make the overall standard of the Bundesliga and make the product better? And that's my question to you. Sheriff Nawaz says, hello. Hi, my friend. Liverpool buy Isak for 125 million, spend the money 130 on West Mid and West, so that these teams can then buy their replacements. Andrew, I might make a really, really good case. I don't disagree with those comments, but it's almost a bit like, for me, and whilst I agree with that, because then you can then argue that that money then gets filtered down to the teams, that they would then go by, for example, like a Brighton will then go to another league and pay £30 million for that player, right? But I just wonder if you took £1 billion, and this is just like a thought, is that, and I get, instead of giving £1 billion and filtering that down through like the Premier League, if you then took the £1 billion, you said, look, this is a pure cash, you just invest it in those leagues before it gets to the Premier League, can you make the like for instance the Bundesliga 2 better? Could you make Serie B? And would that make the whole game better if you build the base up and make the base more competitive, and then would that make the overall thing better because you've got a stronger base? If they use the money for improving infrastructure, yes, but if they spunk it on players, exactly. And this is the thing, isn't it? Like I'd love to see I'd love to see an experiment whereby if you just improve the whole of the English game and not just the Premier League, would you have a better, more competitive league? And actually could, for example, the Bundesliga or whatever league it is, catch up? Because we think that, well, the Premier League is the most competitive league. Could they do something, and could they have a more competitive, if they had more competitive teams at the lower ends? Blue Edit says, so Goldbridge saying that we're going to beat Chelsea is a bit crazy, but point deduction can only stop Chelsea from finishing top 5. Goldbridge can say what he likes. I mean, it's his channel. You know, the funny thing is, right, with football and this sort of stuff, is you can believe who you want to believe, and you know, you can I think that people need to make up their own mind, right? So, you know, I think that obviously he does what he does, you know, and he clearly does it very, very well because his channel was the biggest. Is it the best? Some argue that it is. You know, 2.1 million people think it's the best. So you know, I can't really argue with that. But just because somebody says, you know, just because I said, and I'm adamant, and I may be convincing in this as well. I'm adamant that Lammens will start in goal. Right? I'm adamant, and I may convince you. My job is not to convince you of that. But it is a guess. I might be right. I might be wrong. But are we going to beat them? This is where I'm at, and I think this is the best way that I can sum up where I think we're going to go into games, right? And I'll sum it up, right? So if I'm City, right, and I'm going into this game, right, and I'm going to say to myself, we beat City, draw. Scott says we'll beat City, draw Chelsea, and win the next 2 for me. I hate the division between United fan base nowadays. Like everyone has opinions, but you're bullying a person over a managerial disagreement. And do you know what? I agree with you. This is what I wanted to do here. Is that and it's really important for me to say this, is that just because you come here and I'm talking, right, and I will read out your stuff, right, and then if I come back on that, it doesn't mean that I'm disrespecting your opinion, and it doesn't mean I think your opinion is wrong. I'm just talking through the sort of chats, right? But I will always say this, right? Whether you're Amorin in or Amorin out, right, you're welcome here. Right? I'm not going to call you wrong for that, right? I have an opinion. I'm an Amorin inner, right, for the reasons, and I've discussed the reasons why. But if you're Amorin out, you are valid in that opinion as well, because I can happily sit here and concede and say, look, I absolutely understand why you'd feel that way. I wouldn't. You know, people have their opinions. Even if you, but what I don't accept is, or even if you were like, I'm Amorin out, and if anyone says he's in, then you're terrible. Or if I'm Amorin in, and anyone else thinks that he should be out, is, you know, no, you're still welcome here, but I think people watch football and consume football in a completely different way. And I think just because you have a different opinion to me or a different opinion to the chat, you should be able to come here and be free to voice that opinion, and be free. And I'll happily debate it out with you and happily talk it out. I'm not here to make you see things from my way. And we can talk and discuss, but I agree with you completely. But you can't bully somebody. You can't bully somebody into agreeing, and I agree with you on that one. Yeah, 100%. If you're Amorin in or out, I think it's a personal thing, right? As a Liverpool fan from Liverpool, I can vouch around 500k fans who sub to watch meltdowns. He's truly Alan Partridge of football. And again, I think for me, I think that again, you've got to admire what he does, right? JB said, ew, JB said he's City. What I will say about look, he does what he does extremely well, right? And there is I can only respect the guy. I can only respect the hustle. I can only respect, how can and I think what's fair is that when you're talking about these platforms, now I absolutely understand the hustle, right? I mean, I've got a full-time job, 2 kids, and this is not something that I do. Like, people may think that you get into this because, like, you want to make tons and tons of money. I'm completely, it's just something that I just thought of doing. I like talking to people, and I just thought it'd be quite cool to talk about something that I'm passionate about, right? And it seems to have worked to a point, right? But I completely understand the hustle. I get, the fact that the guy, I think anybody, you can, just like the man, I don't know him, I think he's all right. But you've got to admire the hustle. I mean, he knows his brand. He's got his brand down to a T, and you've got to admire what they've done over there. I mean, they've got rights now to the Bundesliga, right? I mean, it is just. I think it's to be admired what he's done for the football community, what he's done for communities like mine. But yeah, he's just. I don't like everything that they do. I don't. Unless I personally think, and I'm obviously not. I think we do stuff better, just me and with us as a community, than some of the people that he's got on there. I'm just saying. I think we do it. I think we do it. I think we do it better. But no, they are an absolute machine. Said he's City. I'm never City, mate. After City game, fixtures coming up are Chelsea home, Brentford away, Sunderland home, Liverpool away, Brighton home, Forest, Spurs, and Everton. Ali Tanverdi says, yes. I am a Galatasaray fan, and unfortunately, we will not pity Liverpool. Blues, I'm Amorin in. He deserves to complete the contract. We cannot sack another manager before. I'm sorry, it would be to do more damage and fix this squad. I agree with you. I'm Amorin in. He needs more time not to be sacked when he goes on a bad run of games. I agree. Why back him if he'll get eighth? Get eighth and go. No, I disagree. Rajat, I think to myself, my friend, what, again, your comment, I'm not putting your comment down, but if he gets eighth, the guy needs £1 billion. I think this squad needs £1 billion, and it sounds awful. That's a huge amount of money, but he needs that money. He needs the money to get anywhere near. We've had our CEO come out and basically say that we're going to win the title by 2028. You can't do that unless you spend £1 billion. It is ridiculousness. So I just, it needs money. It needs money. Can't back him blindly. JB, enjoy the chat, dude, but work is drawing closer. We'll do some PSR research for the next time. Au revoir, Andrew, legend. Thank you for being here, my friend. Absolute wonderful chatting to you, my friend. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Really, I'm loving the chat. So thank you so much for being here. So I'm also going to go 2 hours again. Absolutely ridiculous. The time just goes so quickly here. These are some of my favorite shows. Get so many different people in here in the chat. I mean, I like Andrew tonight. Intelligent chat. Sorry. Sorry. I understand your point in finishing 15th, but Amorin was part of that. He was, Andrew. Again, this is why I can't. This is why I can't disagree with people who are Amorin out, because when you have a horrific season like you did, like we did, you have to look at all the components and the constituent parts of that, right? And at 100%, an argument for me could be, why was Emery able to go into Aston Villa, get a tune out of Aston Villa, and get them into the Champions League, right? And again, Andrew, you said same squad. Ten Hag finished third, yes, and had a poor start, but he finished third and second. Yes, we finished 15th, but that was all Ten Hag. and this is where I think, Andrew, you have raised a good point here, and I think that's a very good point that can draw in many different elements and many different points. And I think, and just probably the crux of it, right, is that Amorin was part of that. And as an Amorin outer, not me personally, but if you are an Amorin outer, I can see why you'd go, look, why can Emery come into Aston Villa and get a tune out of them, but Ten Hag can't get a tune like out of these players? I try and go through it really quickly. Just before I go, I think the overall arching thing for me, quickly before I go, is what I'll personally say for me on it is because they've asked the managers to come in to play a completely different style of football. And I mean, literally, it's basically a bit like asking somebody who plays the drums to play an oboe, right? Just because you can read, you can read the notes, you can read like the music and what you're trying to play, but you've never played that before. And when you've got low IQ players, and they are, who are lazy, toxicity, you've got to factor in the toxic players as well. You had Rashford, you've got all these players in who are toxic, and managers just being sacked as well. And then you're asking a coach to come in to try to teach these players a brand new system, these lazy, low IQ players who literally have got managers sacked time and time again, who don't want to play the system, who want to play their own way, who don't like this young coach, that the whole club is on his arse. It's not as simple as that. And I think that for me is basically the short answer, is that when you have all those things combined, and I'm not letting Amorin get away with it scot-free, but if you're making a band with the drummer can't drum, you can change the whole band. Andrew, I love it, my friend. I love it. I love it. It's true. But if you're making a band and the drummer can't drum, you don't change the whole band to fit into your. And Andrew, that is exactly one of my points as well. Is that why wouldn't you bring in a coach who can use these players? So you've basically asked the manager to come in to play a completely different style, and this manager needs a completely different set of players, right? But you can't provide him the means to do so. So you've got these players who are not his players, who can't play, who can't play in his band. If you want to go back to playing the drums now with your left and an open back, you want just needs back in fully, not half-assed like Sergio. What if you want to go back to playing the drums now? You're left with an oboe backing, but you want rock and roll. Exactly, Andrew. This is the epitome, right? This is probably the best analogy, the best chat in relation and sums up what this club has been doing, right? It's a mess. It's exactly how you are saying it now, right? Is that, you know, you've got someone who plays the drums and he wants to play like an oboe, right? But then what happens then if you want the drummer to go back to playing? Mate, it's a mess. You've basically got a band who's a mishmash of all sorts of stuff, and nobody can do a single thing. And you've probably hit the nail right on the head. You basically what Ineos needed to do is back his manager, rip up the whole band, right? Rip up the whole band and go, we're going to get you in your band to play your band in your way. Let's not try and make an oboe player play the drums. Let's not make the saxophone player play the clarinet. Just get people, just get specialists to do those jobs, and that's what Amorin needs. And that is not what he's got. But again, making some fair points completely. So guys, I'm going to go. Guys, chat tonight. Big up to Scott, to Rob, reject to Andrew. Brilliant. Blue edits as well. I normally try and go through the bit of the chats. Ali, I mean, hopefully I've not missed. I probably will miss Sharif. I hope I don't. Just Ernest. I said Andrew. Yeah, guys, there's so many of you now. Absolutely fantastic show, guys. Brilliant. As I always say at the end of these shows, it's really important to acknowledge the chat and just say, like, there's one thing in life that you can't buy, right? Is you can't buy time, okay, and you can't buy your health, you know. And as it was proven yesterday, you know, a young man in the States, whether you agree with his political affiliations or not, you know, his life was ended. You know, a father, 31 years old, you know, and time is just so it goes by so quickly. You don't know what's going to happen. And the fact that you've chosen to spend your time with me, with the chat, you know, you're here, like you spend an amount of time here with me. It genuinely blows my mind every time you guys give me the time of day. You give the channel the time of day as well. So it just, you know, and the fact that you give your time to this community and on this chat as well is just amazing. So I can only thank you so much for being here. We'll keep on continuing to do what we do. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm sure there's a presser out tomorrow for the game. I'll come back and I'll let you guys know what Amorin said. Have a good rest of your evening, morning, afternoon, whatever you're doing. Anthony Day says hi from the UK. That's what happens when you have a different political opinion in the US. Sad to say, you know, like on here, we have our different views and opinions, and this is why it's really important to me on here. It's completely different and not the same, but it's why it's really important for me that I think people are allowed to have their views and opinion, and as long as it's done in a respectful way, I don't see the need for abuse of any kind. You know, I think people are entitled to their opinions, as long as those opinions are not illegal or based on, you know, anything weird, right? But I think it's really important for you guys to feel like you've got a place to come, have your opinions, have a laugh, you know, come and share some stories, which I think we do. You know, and just come in a that sounds wrong. Just come to a safe space and just feel like you guys can just have a chat, you know, like a mate in a pub. So yeah, guys, amazing show as always. Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. You don't see taking popping shots off of people with a strap on there. Exactly. You know, I'm never gonna, you know, exactly, Rob. Thank you, my friend. But it's true, Scott. You're never going to see me popping off an AK, you know, because you don't agree with me. I live in a house full of girls who don't agree with me at the best of times, so I'm used to having to, you know, to toe the party line as it was at times. So, you know, yeah, it's really important that people get to share their views and opinions. So, guys, on that note, legends, as always, I'll be back tomorrow morning at some point. Yeah, have a good rest of your morning, evening, afternoon. Stay safe. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families in whatever you do. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. And thank you for watching. See you later.